Can you guys just give me 1 sec? Can you guys just give me 1 sec? Can you
Okay,
guys just
am
give
I
me
audible?
1 sec?
Yes, you are.
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay, I'm starting in three, two, one. Ladies and gentlemen, the reason of why the motion should exist is that what we want is to make the developing countries to have better check and balances in order to pursue democracy, which is less corruption, in which that it has a lot of reshuffle regarding power, and we do not want any consolidated power to exist within the spectrum. What we want is to change and to make the voices of minority to be heard, right? But before that, let's explain the motion. What is this? So talking about political dynasties, I think that is very clear. So the people that already has, for example, generations of, same people that already garner position in the office. For example, that the son of the president that goes into to become a civil servant to attend Congress, for example, and it can also span into their their brothers and sisters and also the cousins, for example, on which the political dynasties may happen within the spectrum of families, right? So this is talking about families of people that consisted in political dynasties. Elected office, of course, we talk about being Congress and civil servants. So in our side, we're going to stand for banning all of these members of political dynasties in order for them to get inside Congress or get inside to become a civil servant, for example. So all right, let's define developing countries in our side, right? Notice that developing countries is always trying to pursue democracy. What does it mean by democracy, right? Democracy means that we want to open voting, for example, because notice that in this case, developing countries tends to be number one, usually post-colonial. For example, talking about Indonesia, it means that in the past already happened to have a lot of problems regarding colonialism. So therefore, after we breakthrough of independence, we're trying to pursue the democratical advantages. But most likely, the person that got into power is the one that perhaps is the one that got very successful in terms of gaining our independence. But most likely that the son and the wife or the brothers of this of this hero, for example, got into political power, and I'm going to explain why is it bad. But moreover, for the developing countries in this case is most of them are very corruption based, right? So most of these political offices tends to have a very um, constructed line of power in which that they have a strong trust within their Congress, but they do not allow any opposition power to come in. Right? Such example, of course, in let's say Indonesia again, when most of the opposition are very hard to penetrate into constitutional power if this stronger party, which has the person that is the descendant of our independence, hero, for example, has in power, and it's very hard for these minorities to come in. Moreover, most of these developing countries are based on the strong communist tendencies, and what we want is to liberate them to do so, right? Okay, I'm going to talk about two things in my speech. Number one, I'm going to talk about the principle of why long-term rule, in this case, by these political dynasties, is clearly a mistrust in democracy, and I'm going to explain the practical argument why this is not going to last long-term and why is it bad, right? Okay. Notice that in this case, political tendencies tends to last for a very long time. Most of the people do not want to, give the power to all of this minor opposition, but most of these people tends to include it in the very majoritarian party and has a very strong basis of voting power, right? Okay, so talking about in this case, meaning that the democracy is going to be hard to pursue. Why? Number one, is going to be hard for you to create a shuffle of power because most of this majoritarian political dynasty tends to manipulate the vote, rigging it, for example, and then they shuffle. The policies is going to be very hard to change. It's going to be very static, meaning that because they already found several loopholes in the way that they can just garner and dig in the case of money, for instances. In this case, it's going to be hard for us to create a check and balance on which that the democracy is trying to strive hard for, because most of the case that all of them are cronies, right? More of them are having hands of each other, and they will not like talk in the court, for example, even if the opposition wants them to talk in the court, because they just kind of hide the evidence away. They have so much power in the political office, and that in this case minorities will have a hard power for them to penetrate on this case. Now, notice that allowing political dynasties to go again and again is going to be bad, because number one, it's going to be based by nepotism, right? There is long-lasting trust on bad cronies, because this political dynasty is most likely going to have cronies that is being trusted in the past, and after that being generation by their own descendants, meaning that they want to protect dynasties for their pragmatic nepotism, because perhaps that are not that compatible, they are not that good in terms of pragmatic no pragmatic capability. But in this case, they want to maintain their power, because being in a government means that you can get a lot of money, you can manipulate taxes, and therefore corruption is very rapid, right? In most of the developing countries, especially like say Africa, right? Most of the people are very tribe based, so this majoritarian tribe that is being trusted will always going to garner power, like in this case like monarchy, for example. This is bad, because being too long in power means that they will be knowing the loopholes. They can maintain it to dig more money, and the opposition will going to hard to react, because the power is just too consolidated. Voting may be rigged, no check and balances, meaning because they have a lot of money, they're basically wealthy, right? Being wealthy means that it can be very manipulative. Being having a strong backing, that basically their cronies is an echo chamber in and of itself, means that nobody can just like penetrate this power without like necessarily banning them directly from the office. This will result in no political changes, right? Because the policy that is already being enacted will be enacted for a very long time, because the loopholes should be maintained as long as possible in order for nepotism to still happen from generation to generation, right? Therefore, in the case of Indonesia, Suharto is a very long time, nepotism, and has a lot of cronies within this political party. They manipulate the civil servants election in order for them to have a same the same ideology as them, for example. Notice that in this case, if opposition wants to argue that, yeah, but they have a very strong political trust, that's mean that they have a strong power to create a unity within country. But unity is only limited towards the majority that has a strong ideological construction to them. The poor people will always bow down to the power of this majority. The political dynasty means that it will create more static progress, rampant communism, rampant poverty, and in this case minorities do not have any voice to act, because the act of voting it is rigged and is not there to begin with. Opposition can only win if they can say that the political analysis might create a better world, on which that we do not believe that it is there to do so. With that, we're very proud to propose. Thank you.
Right. So we thank the Prime Minister for the speech. Now to open up the negative case, and we have the leader of opposition. Here.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Also, the time is 7 minutes or 8 minutes.
My speech is like 7 actually.
So I do for about 7 minutes. What does the adjudicator have to say on this? So everybody else, please mute your mic. Excuse me, please, Eshtiak, can you mute your microphone? All right, fine. So I'll be starting in a few seconds. Panel, there is a structural flaw in the case presented by side proposition. In one hand, they say that their intention is to pursue democracy, and on the foundations of democracy, we create the system in the developing countries. Next, they exclude a very large number of people from attaining that power when they
Is
had
the L
no choice.
ready?
Oh Lord, I was already starting. So okay, I'm already ready. What?
Leader of opposition.
Are you not hearing me? Excuse me. Am I
Hello.
not being audible? Am I not audible?
We can't
I
hear
think
you.
I think I am audible.
We can hear you.
I don't know.
Guys,
I think
can you guys hear him?
Adjudic-
Or is it
Yes,
only
I
me?
can. I can hear. I can hear.
I can hear.
I cannot, like. Can you speak again? Can they
yes, I
speak
will.
again?
Okay, I will speak again. Can you please reconnect and
No, I
connect?
cannot
Because
hear
I
you
think
at all.
other people reported that they could hear me. So I don't know if that's problem exclusive to you.
Okay, I'm reconnecting again. Just give me a minute.
How clear was I? I mean, in terms of my
It was
voice
pretty
coming.
clear. It was
Okay.
clear, I guess.
For me, it was very clear.
I could hear everything. It was pretty clear.
All right. So Rafiush, can you hear me now?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me also?
Yes, I can. I can. Sorry for the inconvenience. Can you start again?
Okay.
Sorry, man.
Panel, there's a structural flaw in the case presented by side proposition. In one hand, they say that the democracy is the major method these developing countries should go forward, and on the same ground, they exclude a certain group of people who are in the political dynasty from competing in elections just because they were born to it, meaning that these people had no choice in that matter. They were just born to a political dynasty, and for that particular reason they are excluded for being in a political situation, just because we assume that the problems that exist in the mechanistic level, the problems that exist that or the opposition side assume that they exist, is the reason that they should be excluded. We totally reject this premise because of the following reasons. Firstly, we are going to be talking about why these people are better positioned to solve the problems of the country, provided that they come from a background of a large number of political background. Second, we are going to be talking about why they can command a large group of people, and that is more important than just being politician in the first place. Also, thirdly, we are going to be talking about why long-term goals are better set and better solved on our side of the house, which cannot occur in their side of the house, right? So firstly, my reverters will be integrated within, right? So basically, the premise that the opposition case side boiled down to is the premise that there will be corruption, the consolidation of power within that system. But they never stop to tell us why this consolidation is intrinsically bad for all majority of the people. We say that in instances where these people do bad action, the democracy corrects for itself in this kind of situations. So why we say that political dynasty can be a great help to the country. Now, firstly, these people are being bred into that platform, meaning that they already have knowledge of politics and things as such from their parents or from the people who were already into politics. They already have a background that they can connect to. They already know a majority of things. To create another politician out of nowhere, meaning that we exclude already talented, informed, and better positioned politicians from this kind of environment, will mean that we halt the extent to which we can develop this developing countries. We say people with already better backgrounds and better practice, even amongst their homes, and who have seen different aspects of politics being done already, are better positioned to solve the problems in on itself. Now, even if their fathers, or if even if the dynasty itself was corrupt in the past, does not necessarily mean that this is inherited upon the children through the mechanisms like the opposition side presented. We say that as an individual of a dynasty, I'm less likely to inherit the bad values that I incorporate to, but only provide them with the kind of political knowledge and the expertise that we need for the matter. We say this being bred, these individuals being bred into that kind of platform through the user family is very important in solving the most important issues and identifying the most important issues that their parents would have already done, and that would otherwise be wasted, that would otherwise waste a lot of time for other politicians. We say that is the only reason as to why it should be that is the only way as to why we can have that kind of development on our side of the house before even coming to politics. Secondly, we tell that these politicians can command people. We say a part of politicians' policy is actually bringing them out. Second part is implementing them. Third part is people not having backlashes against them or people supporting them. We say the second and third part is better solved on our side, because since people already know this person, since people already believe on them, it's very easy for these policies to pass. These policies are the actual things that are going to create development in the countries, and until and unless they cannot go forward and penetrate through the backlash of the people, they can never actually bring tangible outcome. So incompetent political leader, like I suggested, with no political background, coming into power and even not having people's total commitment to that individual is the reason as to why he cannot pass policies, right? These individuals are better not maintained in their side, because now we have banned the better individuals in our side, so people are going to be voting to whoever others are remaining, and maybe they will even get majority of votes because there are no better candidates in the election. But that does not necessarily mean that people know them and support them to the extent that this cult of personality that is created on our side is helping these people to the long run. Also, that leads me to my third point. Notice that the developing countries need a long, sustainable plan for development. Even if I, as a politician, bring about a long-term goal or a long-term policies that is going to bring about change, it changes with a change in politician. Even if I did a very good job, now if somebody else who is not of my family dynasty, not related to me of that sort, he wins the election, he can totally change the policies, and that long-term goals is halted in an instant, right? So we say that this kind of goals can only be met with the help of political dynasties. When a government official plans something which needs a lot of time to establish, a lot of people to come, a lot of people to believe on them, and this belief needs to be recreated at every election if different individuals get elected. So we say that these plans will better happen when people can associate these plans with somebody, or somebody who is very powerful in that regard, and only then the political dynasty comes into play for these plans getting passed and these plans being better good, right? So we say that we cannot first preempt that these individuals are always going to be bad. We cannot say that is unfair for other individuals, because these individuals are totally talented and have the background related to others, meaning that it's a very sensitive issue we are talking about. People at the very positions of power, more inclined to solve the problems, right? So more able to solve the problems must not be excluded because we think the system is unfair on the right. Also, we think there are other politicians who actually have, like, maybe their father did a very bad job in doing them. We are also banning them, right? These people may want to repair their family image despite the perceptual biases against them. They are actually able to go against these people already having perceptual bias against them and win in the election, meaning they have come a long way just because they were born of a family that was related to politics. So not actually discriminate them from the things as such, right? So there is no principle here, because the principle they follow is the principle of democracy, and this is a total violation by excluding a group of people on the things that they did not choose to, right? These people did not have any control over where they were born, and their birth is totally arbitrary, and that is actually systematically separating more influential, more powerful, more knowledgeable people from the situations of power that is detrimental to the long-term policies and long-term development plans these developing countries can have. We say on their side we have no political change because a lot of time is invested on these people people being appealing to public, these people going through backlash. Well, these kind of crimes are not actually wasted on our side because people already trust the person, and that is why this person commands a very strong political power to bring about abrupt development, which is actually the most important thing to bring about in developing countries. We are very proud to oppose.
Thank the leader of opposition for the speech. Now to continue the positive case, can we have the Deputy Prime Minister? Here.
Am I audible? Hello.
Yes,
Yes, you are. Yes.
Okay, panel. First, I'd like to start with some rebuttals. They told us that they stand for democracy. They say that democracy stands in their side of the house because we are excluding a few people from actually competing in elections by banning them. But understand, in their side of the house, they exclude almost everyone. Just because a person can run in an election does not mean that you're supporting his cause, because even if he runs in an election, he's going to lose that election, meaning that another person who has political power because of the past or because of his parents being involved in politics means that he has more wealth. Understand, we're talking about developing countries where there's a lot of corruption, and the money and all the political capital of the country is held by the people of these political dynasties. Means that these people now govern so much wealth and so much power that other people or any other person from any other background trying to run in the election will never win the election. So, and not just not win the election, the political parties themselves are not will not be willing to take those people and make them stand in elections, given that those people are likely to lose in a competition with a person from political dynasty. So, in principle, when they say they stand for democracy, they don't stand for all people. They just stand for people of political dynasty. They also tell us how it is important that people of political dynasty come to power, because those people now will be able to pass plans and because they have more support from people. But understand, that is how we reach to a state of despotism where a country is led by a tyrannical leader, right? So they are trying to tell us that a few people should always hold power and hog on to that power, because now those people are better able to run the country. Even if we consider this idea of theirs that these people are capable of running the country, we still have to understand that their idea is only the idea of autocracy, where a person is actually running a country and other people are not existing at all, right? So this is actually a state of no opposition, and we say that in such a state democracy cannot exist. Also understand, when they say us that when they tell us that there is more knowledge of how to govern a country with these people, we have to understand that who has more incentive to govern a country and who has more incentive to stand up for the people. Understand, just because somebody has more knowledge because his parents were involved in politics does not mean he understands the pain and suffering of the people in the society. Understand that the people from non-political backgrounds are likely to have been raised up in a place where they suffered poverty, they suffered other experiences in life, and those experiences teach people more about the problems that exist in the world, right? So when such problems do exist in the world, means that these people now have like all these experiences of pain and suffering, and because of these pain they are more motivated and their ideals to stand for what is right is stronger, and that is why our side of the house gives us more capable leaders. Understand, when we tell you that a person understanding politics is not enough to become a good leader, because a good leader must possess other abilities like understanding the status quo, understanding what the problems are in the society. A person who was raised up in a political dynasty, meaning that a dynasty of families which governs a lot of wealth because of them being in power for a long time, means that this person has not suffered as much and does not understand the problems that exist, right? So also understand what they exclude are other people, right? Even in developing countries, there are people who are educated and there are people who want to bring a change in the country, who given the chance can bring a change and understand politics even better than the people from political dynasties. Understanding of politics does not just come from your family giving you knowledge of politics. It also comes from you studying about politics, right? And those people who actually do that all their lives, even those people cannot stand a chance when they compete against a person of a heritage, because in developing countries what happens is people being swayed by the history of political leaders in the family are likely to vote for those people, and that is why the political parties will also likely make those people candidates of the election. So in their side of the house, majority of the people are excluded, and so they lose this class on principle of democracy. Now, to tell you what are the ideas that we brought in this debate. First, we told you about why power shift does not happen in their side of the house. Understand, power shift does not happen because there's more political power with a certain group of people because they belong to a political dynasty, and more media attention is given to these people from the time they are children, right? So because of this, what happens is these people having so much of media attention, so much of power, are likely to win the election. Also because they control a lot of wealth and have a lot of money, and also because parties tend to only select those candidates with maximum chance of winning, meaning that these people have more chance of winning. So because of all these reasons, what happens is there is never going to be a shift in political scenario in their side of the house. Now I'm going to tell you why political shift is very important in developing countries, but before that I'll take your POI. So the idea that majority are catered by political dynasties in itself flawed, because understand, in any developing countries there are a lot of people, and when we say minorities, we just don't mean few people. Actually a lot of small minorities make the majority in any place, right? So all these small majorities, when they combine, they become a majority, but these people are do not get rights, right? And when you say we are banning majority, we're not doing that, because even after that, the majority of people will be voting for right people. But understand, when these majority of people are already rich in the status quo, already powerful because of the years of power they got to enjoy, right? So when they can make educated choice, they also can like have the power already in the status quo, so it's not harming them as much, and still people from majority will still be elected anyway because these people are educated people. But understand, those minorities which exist have not got any rights in the status quo, and these people have been disenfranchised from a long time, right? So now when these people get power, then status quo is likely to change. And also understand, we are not like banning majority, because majority already govern wealth, and we're just banning one person from running, a few people from running in election, but still other people representing their ideology, representing their votes will still exist, and they will still be voting for their own policies, right? But they will not just be voting for a person, they'll be voting for policies in our side of the house. So will be done by minorities, but in our side of the house, even those people in minorities get a chance to stand in election and win in your side. That does not happen. So like democracy does not stand in your side of the house. But also I was talking about why political shift is important specifically in developing countries. First, we told you about principle of democracy, because in developing countries it is likely that there are a lot of minorities, and these minorities don't have any voice, right? So when we give them another person, another leader, means that there's a shift in principle. And so now that minorities who have been disenfranchised from a long time, who had not been given any rights, are given rights by the new leadership. Also, if they are not given rights, also understand that there's at least a shift in thinking process. There's at least a shift in leadership, which is beneficial, because there will happen a discourse, and so existence of opposition or existence of new ideology is important anyway. Also understand why wealth is governed by few people, because there's a lot of corruption. But when a new person comes to power, means that that corruption is going to be tackled, because now there's a new person running the process. Also understand, like with their side of the house, there's more class difference, because a certain party is constantly running the election, winning it, and also making money out of corruption. And because of several reasons, like all the power is concentrated to a few people, which is not democracy in any way. In the side of the house, what happens is the class difference minimizes, because the people from minorities or any other class also come to election and bring out their ideologies, means that these people also start getting right. These people also enjoy certain power that majority were enjoying. And because of this, what happens is the class difference that exists in the society is less highlighted in our side. And also understand that like oppression of the oppressed is not something that can happen. Like in our side of the house, the oppressed people are getting rights, but those people already in power cannot be oppressed anyway, right? Because those people already are educated and already have a certain amount of wealth. So because of all these reasons, our world looks much better than theirs, because in our world, like all people seem to be more equal, and because of the equality they enjoy, people are going to be more happy. So we are very proud to promote them.
We thank the Deputy Prime Minister for the speech. Now to extend the case for the opposition side, can we have the Deputy Leader of Opposition? Here.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Give me a minute. What gets these people from political dynasties elected, which is why a lot of competent people do not get elected at all. Now, let me tell you the problem with such a claim. So, political dynasties come to power through democracy. They come to power through democracy, elect them. Also, it's not always that corruption and manipulation is what gets them elected. That's an assumption. They do not tell you what makes people who are not from political dynasties more competent than who are from a political dynasty. Because a good leader, just because you're from a background where you're not privileged enough, yes, you're able to understand the problem of your surroundings better, sure. But are you just because you whatever problem you're locally exposed to, you're able to understand that better, does that mean you will be a better leader? We don't think so. Because we are comparing people from political dynasty know better for the country, who knows how to run the country. And as a leader, your primary responsibility is to know what should be done, and how can you do it effectively. Because of staying in power for law, as my LO has established, you are more likely be able to do that in our world, and you and achieve long-term goals. And good leaders can. It is more likely that good leaders will come out of political dynasties, and at the end of the day, they're elected by citizens. And it is their right. It is their right to stand for election. Now, they talk about capability versus other people not existing at all, which we do not understand. Because if someone who is not from the political dynasty is trying to cater to people and trying to get elected in the office, his campaign should be that way. In a democratic country, we're talking about democracy here. He should be able to pursue people. And we from our house are not stopping this kind, right? So if it's their failure, it is their failure because of corruption or manipulation. Also, we do not necessarily believe that these people who are not from the political dynasties has more incentives to cater to the developing countries and its people, because as they mentioned, good leaders understand the status quo, and we think that that happens better in our world because political dynasties are educated, and they can always they're better educated, and they have that backup. They have that backup from their background where they can be monitored and they can be advised wisely. Also, a major okay. If something that is if there's something that you can't do a developing country, that is to experiment with it. So when you what happens when you ban members of political party from standing? You're denying people's right to elect their favorite candidate. You're denying it, which you cannot, which is something you cannot do, which is something you can't justify, because you're able to prove to us why they're better candidates to begin, just because they're not born into a politically privileged background. And you can't let them experiment with your country or experiment development status of the country, but when you're not allowing allowing the major influencers to run, what you're essentially doing is you're experimenting with the country, because there is government fails to tell us why they're effective leader. Yes, that's what you need. You need to pass long-term policy to you need to cater to people, and in order to pass policy, you need to have that trust, have that trust of people, which their in their side is lacking. So what we tell you how benefits developing countries more, and banning members from standing for elected office will never benefit to developing countries, and they do not show how that's gonna happen, because they fail to show us how how they will be good leaders, and also if they're in the position of power, how they're if they end up being in the position of power, how they will be able to pass policies, and so that we're proud to oppose.
We thank the Deputy Leader of Opposition for the speech. Now to open up the case for now to extend the case for government, can we have the government whip? Here.
Just give me 1 minute. Am I audible? Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Mr. Speaker, uh, the question that was raised by the deputy leader of opposition was that how our side of the house creates good leaders, right? We tell you why our side of the house creates good leader than their side of the house, because we come here and we tell you that in our side of the house we allow the minorities to raise their voice, to come up and to take part in the elections. That is to say that the people who are actually suffering from pain, the people who are actually suffering from poverty, the people who have the experience of pain, the people who have the experience of poverty, the people who are actually suffering from these activities will actually get to represent themselves in the election, and they will be able to work in a more likely, in a more favorable way for these people. That's why we tell you that because they have the experience of the pain that they have gone through, we tell you that our side of the house gave better leaders than their side of the house. So this is the opposition. This is the answer to the question that was raised by the DLO. Now, Mr. Speaker, understand what we brought you in this debate. What our side of the house brought you in this debate. We tell you that how there will be a mistrust in democracy and how this will be a tyrannical rule. We tell you that why our side of the house removes the stagnant progress, and why our side of the house brings gradual development. But let us look at the opposition's case. What was the opposition case? The opposition came up here. The opposition leader came up here and told us that how this majority will be excluded by the actions when we take of banning these parties from taking part in the elections. But we tell you that majority will still have power. Majority will still have wealth. That is to say that their candidate will still be represented. But we tell you that why our house the main idea of democracy is to cater the needs of the minorities, which happens in our side of the house. So this entire idea of the opposition's case, that was to completely avoid the majority, does not seem to happen. Another thing that they bought was how there is long sustainable plans in their side of the house. Mr. Speaker, understand that these long sustainable plans actually do not exist in their side of the house. How? Because understand that these developing countries actually have dynamic economies. That is, their economies is that is their economy is currently changing. So according to that, we need changing plans and policies that is brought by these changing governments, right? Uh, when a fixed political party is likely to rule the country for a longer period of time, we cannot expect changing policies to come from the party. So this idea of their sustainability does not stand, because there is still going to be that old establishing those, or there's going to be still those old parties establishing the same policies to this to this dynamic economy. So their idea does not stand in this case. So, Mr. Speaker, why understand why we create a better world? We create a better world because in our side of the house we show you gradual development. That is to say that in our side of the house there is change, there is a political shift. That is, there is change in political parties which bring different political policies according to the changing dynamic economy. So we create a gradual development. Another reason why our side of the house creates a better world is because we cater the needs of these minorities. We let these people who are oppressed, who are never given their power to rise. We give them the power to rise. We give them the right to do actions, to take actions that they have always wanted to do because of the pain that they have suffered. That's why we create better world. Another thing is um, uh, also we create a better world because we can identify the political dynamic we identify that the political dynamics will be pragmatic benefit compared with moral reasons, that is abstract. And fourth reason why we create a better world is that when these political parties are allowed to rise, there will be a discourse, there will be a discussion, and likely more new ideas and more new ideas are likely to come. So these four reasons are the reasons like our side of the house creates a better world. Now, Mr. Speaker, understand what were the major clashes in this debate. The major clashes in this debate were uh, sustainability. Is sustainability going to be in their side of the house more or in our side of the house? We tell you why sustainability is going to be in our side of the house more, as we tell you that our policies constantly adapt to the changing needs of these people, whereas in their side of the house policies remain stagnant and the same, because these policies are constantly being imposed by the same political parties. So our house guarantees more sustainability than in their side of the house. Secondly, which political leaders will have political knowledge. Now, understand, Mr. Speaker, that the opposition is living in a completely made up world. That is to say that they tell us that even if the forefathers were corrupted, the corruption is not going to come up in their side of come up to the passing generations. But again, they say that if the learnings of the forefathers is going to pass on to the younger generation. That does not happen. If something passes down, we cannot only consider the good things to pass down and the bad things to remain as they were. If something has to pass down, both the good sides and the bad sides both needs to pass down to the upcoming generations, right? So this entire idea about the opposition regarding the knowledges that will be passed down to the generation, and the corruption and all those stuffs is not going to pass down, does not likely seem to does is less viable. All right, so we tell you white eye side of the house creates better political leaders, because we tell you we give people who have suffered, people who have actually experienced the pain, to rise up, to bring up policies who will actually help their people so yeah, because of their experience of pain, we are likely to create better political leaders and bring up better policies than their side of the house. So uh, uh, so destroying the opponent's case, and so winning all the major clashes and creating a better world, I as an opposition whip is proud to oppose. Thank you.
We thank the government whip for the speech. Now to conclude the constructive debate, can we have the opposition whip?
Am I audible, guys?
Yes, you are audible.
All right. Give me a minute. All right, I'm starting. Honorable Speaker, first I will rebut their major points and what they have tried to told us, and why do they not stand in the ground? Why do they not stand in our debate? Then we will show you why our arguments they didn't touch is important, and then we will show you why our role is important and their lacks development. Okay, first let us go to their arguments. Okay, they have tried to show us three arguments at first, then the opposition whip came up and thrown another argument at the last point. Okay, what were their arguments? One, they were that they are catering for democracy. Second, were they won't let minority left uncatered, and third is that the exploitation of government and corruption, and fourth, which the whip came up with, is the changing developed countries are changing rapidly and they need changing policies and etc. Okay, first I will go to their first argument, which is democracy. They have made an absurd opinion about that democracy caters for the minority, which is not true. Democracy itself means that it will cater for the majority of the people. Democracy won't cater for the minority of the people. Okay, now why am I saying this? Because these political dynasties we are talking about actually is backed by the majority of the people. Just because they are here from the start, they have been backed by the majority of the people and majority of the ideologies. And when you stop this political dynasties to come into power, what will happen? First, this majority will be left uncatered, which I actually raised a POI and which they failed to answer. And that majority is the in a developing country, majority of the people is the main criteria of, because in developing countries everyone is poor, not minorities. Even majority people are poor as well. And secondly, they have talked about their DPM said that when we give this political dynasty power to come for elect office, they will create autocracy. They will create autocracy, all right, but when the majority of the people are catered in democracy, this means that that autocracy is justified because majority of the people is catered. Majority of the people is catered, and they have talked about the minor. And thirdly, they have talked about the minority people. Our minority people will be catered for the democracy because of democracy. But you have to understand this. But when those political dynasties are not here, then there will be scattered amount of parties coming into power, and these parties won't have the backings of general people and the majority, which will not actually solve the case of development of the country. Okay, now what's the second argument? The second argument was that minority will be left uncatered. You have to understand this. In developing countries, there are less minorities. There are less minorities than USA, where there people are migrating every day and they're creating minorities. But in developing countries, the minorities are the majorities, and we have to when we actually cater for the majority, we are actually catering for the whole countries as well, because developing countries has much less minorities itself. Okay, and then we have to understand this minority is not the first criteria for a developing country. For developing countries, it has to improve. And when we are talking about improvement, we have to say that every people has equal rights and has equal opportunities. But when you left these political dynasties not coming to power, what you're doing is that majority of the people are getting uncatered, and the development of the country is stopped. Okay, then the last segment they have shown is changing economy and idea, and the change comes with developing countries. In developing countries, the change comes itself, and the changing economy is changing shift of power. But you have to understand this in changing and that in developing countries, for change and development to come, you have to have policies which is actually developing the country. And for policies, you have to have the backing of the majority. And because policies to pass in constitutions, you have to understand this, that this policy have to backed by majority. And when these political dynasties are in power, these policies will pass. And when these policies will pass, this development will happen. And when this development will happen, the change in economy will come. Okay, then understand this. They have talked about that with this changing, there will be a change. There will be change of shifts. Okay, but understand this. A political dynasty has experience. They have seen the country to evolve into a better place. Countries like Bangladesh, where they have Awami League and BNP, they have seen Bangladesh from the start. They know what changes are going to come. They have enough experience to confront these changes and make policies about them, rather than new parties which they don't have any experience and won't be able to confront these changing policies, won't confront these changing problems which will create in developing countries. That's why we think the talent and experience which political dynasties have is important for the changing economy itself. So when they talk about that changing economy is changing shift of power, is not so important when political dynasties has the experience to do so. Okay, now let's talk about what they didn't touch in our arguments. We have talked about mainly three arguments. First, that these political dynasties have better position because of two reasons: background, and they have better background and knowledge, and they haven't touched the point that these political dynasties have knowledge, talent, and expertise that new parties which will come into power because of ban of political dynasties will not have the same amount of experience and talent and expertise to confront the developing countries' problem and solve them. And you know, they didn't even touch this point, which is really important for this debate, because developing countries need a better solution to this problem. Okay. Secondly, we have talked about that political dynasties have command large amount of people, and when in political dynasties they have faith of the majority of people, and when we have faith of the majority of people, we actually create unity, which is important for a developing country to improve, because developing countries need unity to go forth and improve themselves. Okay, now they didn't touch another point, which is the long-term achievement. And our first speaker have talked about long-term achievement, that policies need to be passed for long-term achievement. And how do we get this long-term achievement? We can get this long-term achievement by passing these policies. And how can we pass these policies? When we have this when we have majority of the people backing these policies, and that's why we think that political dynasties needs to be moved. Okay, now that we have shown that our world has in our world, we are actually improving the development of the country. Our development of the country is ensured, but in their world, the new political parties, they cannot ensure the point, cannot ensure the development of the country. We think in our side of the world is better for the developing of the country. That's why we in this way. Thank you very much.
So we thank the opposition for the constructive take. Now to start the reply round, can we have the opposition reply? Here. Wait, do you guys need time for prepping, or do you want to start right now?
Oh, we did not know that was going to be replies, but I am okay with starting right now if the other side is.
Right, so I can give you 2 minutes or a minute or so. You can prepare if you want to. So do you need that, or do we just start?
Give me.
All right,
sure.
No worries. Take it.
Was going to go as reply speaker.
Suranjan, you want to do the reply, then you can do it, or the PM can do it.
I'm okay with doing the reply.
Okay, sure.
So, is everyone here? And am I audible?
Yes, you are.
So, I'll be starting in a few seconds. Everyone, please mute your microphones. The problem with this debate was that the proposition side had to tie all the problems that developing countries face, the reason why these developing countries could not develop, and tie that to the power consolidation that occurs due to this power dynasties taking power. Yes, they said that there is a problem of power, there is a problem in developing countries, but they never did link that problem actually to the power consolidation that occurs in this kind of side. While we on our side have shown you that it has several different benefits, that is not a reason enough to exclude a certain group of people from a position they never chose to be in. Like we told you why in our side of the house they did not provide the justification for exclusion, right? We told you these people are burned into these communities. They did not have a conscious choice as to do that. They have to show that this actual incident is so very dangerous that we want to exclude people who have been born by politicians into coming into politics. That is the thing that they did not actually show through. Yes, developing countries have problems, but the solutions we have told as is better coming from the people who are in the side. Also, only in the later half of this period did bring about a newer characterization. Policies needs to change. We say we have told you from time and again what this kind of countries lack is a stable policy that is going to last for a long, long time, bringing about the change that is permanently feasible, and that only occurs if the continuation of this kind of line of policies is done through the people who are in political dynasties, right? So what have we brought to you in this debate? 4 points of comparative, right? First, we talked about the choice and why these people had no choice in this regard, the principle to which they did not respond to at any time. Secondly, we brought about the kinds of background, the kind of expertise that these people uniquely have. We say the time otherwise would be spent in gaining the knowledge, understanding the status quo, in making policies which can easily be fast forwarded when we need abrupt change in our side, because now we have people who already have that kind of that kind of control over the policies, since they did not. So why these people who are less capable when measured in a total political platform, when measured in a total fair election, these people will be less powerful, less will have less votes, why they are in better position to deal with these problems. They say that it is important that these people face the atrocities to solve them. We totally deny that premise. We say that it's not true, given that I need not be a homosexual to solve the problems of homosexual individuals. I need not be any member of any particular group to solve the problems of that group. But the most important thing is I have to know the problems that all of these people face, and that can be done from the upmost where you have all the information coming in from your religious members. Also, second part we told you is part of what politicians bring is, yes, is about what they want to bring. Second is about whether or not they can get it passed, not only through the parliament in on itself, in that also political dynasties have more power, also the policies actually being implemented in the country where people need to support that. When there is a personality cult that is attached to these people, this is allowing people to accept the policies that have been inferred to them, which is caused the reason as to why development takes place in developing countries. We say they never gave any response to this kind of people. So even if on the cases where these people do not do good, we say that they have to show the harms caused by these people as being so extensive that this should be banned in the side of the house. We say that is not the case because they never painted us that kind of picture in the side of the house. So also we talked about why long-term policies can never be attained through their side, because the shift in policies is very detrimental, given that people need to have that kind of policies coming into place and changing it at structure, because the problems have a very deep root and it cannot be changed at a very small amount of time when these people assume office. It needs to be continued through generations of people coming in, knowing already what things are to be done, what grounds have been set, and to water on the flowers that have already been planted. We say that are the very reasons, because they did not engage or bring about the exclusive and intense harm on their side of the house. That is why we take the debate. We are very proud to oppose.
So we thank the opposition reply for the speech. Now to conclude the debate, can we have the government reply speaker? Here.
Okay. Starting in 3, 2, 1. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, governments of the house needs to prove to you that political dynasties actually creates more harm than good. Then the opposition needs to prove to you why, in this case, political dynasties will create a better political dynamics, in which that we think that they are not able to prove in this case, because number one, they did not even give us the detailed explanation regarding what will happen if this political dynasties that happens to have a very long stance in the government, which has a lot of cronies, which are very wealthy, which can be very manipulative, which also can be triggering, can trigger the voting system, in which that the democracy which are going to stand for is, capable of doing so, right? Okay, I'm going to divide my speech into 4 sectors, in which that it's going to, talk about opposition stance and compare it with ours, right? First of all, opposition talks about, look, this political dynasties is basically a very strong, people, in which that they have this political knowledge and interest to fix the country. Number one, I think that the opposition does not explain how does these people that like they said, having this birth lottery and suddenly got political knowledge and suddenly got the interest to have a strong stance in backing the country with their strong power, and be that moral without necessarily engaging with their pragmatic interest as an individual. I think that we already explained to you that most of these people are basically drunk with power, and they basically strive to protect their dynasties, which has a lot of cronies, which these cronies actually has pragmatic interest to maintain their own power, to protect their own position, and which that's when the name dynasties come up, that one they want to protect their own position. Then in this case, oppositions just try to argue that these people will certainly have the knowledge and interest to help minorities. In which that in our side, we argue that minorities is the one that should be protected. Minorities is the one that knows how this political conundrum happens. They're the one that feels the pain, the fear, the hatred among this majority that holds so long in this power, which is very manipulative in terms of voting and such, which violates every single conundrum in democratical power that they can do in order for them to maintain the power, right? We argue that these people, minorities, have so much interest to serve the country, regardless the effectiveness of them doing it. But opposition doesn't necessarily explain, right, how these people who suddenly have the interest will become effective in maintaining power. Because actually, we already explained to you why these people will create a very static terms of policy. Because in my speech also, I'm already explained to you, because this policy will be maintained because it has so much loopholes that they will manipulate in order to create more nepotism-based policies. They can employ their brothers, their sisters, their parents in order for them to create a country which is their own. I've already explained to you the case of Indonesia, the case of Africa, which has a lot of tribes, which this majoritarian tribes want to protect their own stance, right? Meaning that the policy will be skewed in order for their need. But second of all, they talk about, look, these people have this strong backing and unity, for example. We argue that this strong backing actually a crony in which that these political dynasties need to protect in order for them to protect themselves, right? They will not care about minorities because what they want to care is the position of their own, for example. They will not create political changes on which the opposition tries to claim, right? Policies, again, will become very static in the terms of protecting their individual interest, right? They argue to you that these people, that continues political dynasty are born within birth lottery, in which that they want to protect the country without necessarily having any pragmatic interest, for example. Notice that in this case, we argue to you that pragmatic interest is always at play in politics, and within the political dynasty, they have so much power to protect that power, and in this case, they will not want to, delegate their power to anyone else, and very proud to propose.
Excuse me? Is he just gone or